Well, folks, what an interesting 24 hours it has been, as we now have the answer to what Puro was teasing yesterday morning when I talked about it in yesterday's video. There was this whole Nintendo World Championships cartridge tweeted out by Puro, the most reliable Nintendo insider, and we now know what that is because it has been rated by the ESRB. Let's talk about it. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I wanted to discuss and follow up on yesterday's kind of leaks and hinting from Puro, because we now have a lot more information about what they were actually teasing, and I would say we pretty much concretely know what this actually is, but there is some room for speculation still. Earlier this morning, the ESRB actually rated something. We now know that Nintendo is releasing something called Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. This was rated by the ESRB, and this was before we found out anything else, which, you know, Puro did end up tweeting more, which we'll get to. But the rating from the ESRB reads, "This is a collection of 2D challenges and platformer games in which players traverse through various modes, example being speedrun, survival. Several challenges involve reaching specific points, while others prompt players to defeat small enemies or survive brief battles. Some games depict pixelated characters using small swords or arrows to strike at enemies. Enemies typically get stunned or disappear in a flash." Now, a lot of people were reading this and thinking, well, it's just the original, you know, ROM for Nintendo World Championships that they had back in 1990, where you play through, what is it, Rad Racer, Tetris, and Mario, and they were just going to re-release that ROM on Nintendo Switch Online. A lot of people thought that. There were a lot of comments about that. I mentioned that in yesterday's video, but this is actually a new game, new in air quotes. It sounds a lot like NES Remix. If you remember NES Remix back on the Wii U as well as on 3DS, they released it like Ultimate NES Remix. Basically, it was these very bite-sized challenges where you play through a slice of Mario Bros or something, and you have to like do a task within like 10 seconds, almost like a WarioWare-esque kind of flow to the game. And in some of those challenges, they would have it so you're playing as like a Link in Super Mario Bros, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So basically just mixing all of these NES games together and having these challenge modes for you to play through. That's what this kind of sounds like to me, although we do need to take into account it is Nintendo World Championships. Nintendo knows what that name means to the fans. At the very least, I'm expecting some sort of like competitive element. Maybe it's NES Remix, but it's online, essentially. You know, you're going online against other players, seeing who can do these things the fastest. I think that's actually a pretty cool idea. I'm curious to see like how much budget there is into this game, like how much polish is this going to have? Because NES Remix, I know it was like a cheap game, but it felt like there was a nice level of polish to NES Remix. So I'm curious to see, what Nintendo World Championships NES Edition looks like for the Nintendo Switch. Now, we did get some more information from Puro after this got rated by the ESRB. So he kind of just, tongue-in-cheek said, this is literally Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, LOL. So kind of making fun of all of us for speculating about Switch 2 yesterday. It's all in good fun. But they clarified some more stuff here, including that it is not a free game. Some people were speculating that this might be a free offering for NSO subscribers, akin to F-Zero 99 and Tetris 99, but no, it is not going to be free. And then they actually later confirmed that it will be a $30 game. This is a $30 game from Nintendo. And they also confirmed that this is not just a port of the original version, but based on the ESRB description, we could already kind of infer that. So this is very interesting to me, because when this tease popped up yesterday, I think the least exciting scenario was just the original ROM put on NSO. I think this is more interesting than if they had brought the, physical world championship back where players go to compete, because this is actually something we can all play. You don't need to be, invited or, get selected to be flown out to do this world championship. You can buy this game and just play it at home, which I think is definitely more exciting for the majority of people. So this is a new game from Nintendo, even if it is going to be using a lot of old NES assets and all that. But there are a lot of questions, who's making this game. I want to say it's probably Indie Zero. Indie Zero made NES Remix, and based on what we're hearing, this sounds very similar to NES Remix, so I think it would probably be them. We also don't know when it's going to be announced. I mean, it could be any day. I'm going to say early next week. I was kind of expecting it maybe to be announced today, but, I'm really curious how Nintendo is going to kind of wedge this game into their game lineup. Like, if it's $30, I think that indicates that it could be a full retail physical game. Like, this is going to be on store shelves. It could be digital only, but Nintendo has released $30 games, and if it is going to be a lighter year than previous years for the Nintendo Switch, it makes sense to put this on a cartridge and just sell it on store shelves. Just get some new product out there for, Christmas, for example. So I could see this totally having a physical release. And I guess, yeah, the question is, when would it release? If it's going to be announced very soon, as most things that Puro teases, you know, normally they come out or get announced very quickly after Puro teases them. So I would expect an announcement soon, but then the release, I think, is more interesting because, you know, some people are saying it's going to be shadow dropped on Twitter. They're going to announce it and release it the same day. Some people are thinking they'll release it in June before Luigi's Mansion 2, so we have a game in there. That would kind of replicate what they did last year with Everybody 1-2 Switch. I think it's likelier that this is our July game. And I actually talked about this quite a bit in my videos in April when we were still talking about the potential of an April Nintendo Direct. This potential of Nintendo announcing a lower budget, lower stakes game for July outside of a Nintendo Direct. Like, that was basically at the time the worst case scenario, because I think a lot of us were convinced we would get some sort of announcements or major announcements in April, but that didn't happen. This idea that they would announce a game on Twitter and then it would release in July, basically paving the way for a June Direct and nothing else in between, you know, which, I mean, we're already almost there. We've been through the thick of it. So that's what I'm thinking right now. I think this will probably be our July game. It's very weird, though, because, like, from what we're hearing from the ESRB rating, just the concept in of itself, bringing back the Nintendo World Championships as what sounds like an NES Remix game. Maybe it won't be too much like NES Remix. Maybe I'm, you know, getting my hopes up too high for that. But it definitely feels like a game that should be in a Nintendo Direct, right? I saw some people saying, like, oh, maybe this means we're going to get a May Direct, but Puro hasn't teased anything else, so I don't want to get my hopes up for that. But it doesn't really feel like a game that should be announced on Twitter. Like, this isn't going to light the world on fire. So having it be a surprise shadow drop announcement in a Nintendo Direct, I feel like would be better for it. Because announcing it on social media and then releasing it in a couple weeks or in, you know, like 2 months, I don't know. This is a very niche release and a very likely low budget one at that. Of course, we don't know what it looks like or who's making it, like I said, but this is definitely a sign of Nintendo's schedule just being lighter this year, I think. And maybe it won't be the big July game. Maybe there will be something else there, but given where we're at with nothing else to kind of speculate on for what would come out in July and when that would be announced, I do think that having this be our quote-unquote big July release makes the most sense. But you know what I mean, though? It does feel like something that should be in a Nintendo Direct. It does feel like something that should be shadow dropped. And frankly, it still does kind of feel like something that should have been maybe free on NSO. Maybe they'll have like a demo or something. The ESRB listing did mention in-app purchases or in-game purchases. I think a lot of ESRB listings mention that, though I'm not too sure if that actually suggests there would be microtransactions. That'd be really weird, especially if Puro is saying it's a $30 game. Maybe there's like a free version, but then $30 is how you unlock the full thing. I could see that, and that would still allow them to have a retail release. It's very interesting, though. So let me know what you think in the comments down below of these developments. Are you interested in this new Nintendo World Championships NES edition for Nintendo Switch? I personally am. I enjoyed NES Remix back on the Wii U, although I don't know if I ever actually played NES Remix 2. I think I might have only ever gotten around to playing the first one, but I enjoyed like the formula to that game. So if this is anything similar, you know, where you're playing through a bunch of NES games in quick format and just like kind of challenge modes and all that, I think that's just a fun idea. But I can see why some people might be disappointed if this is truly one of our big releases for the Switch in the second half of the year. But let me know in the comments down below, are you happy with this outcome from the Puro teases? I was saying in my video, like, yeah, there's a lot here that could indicate Switch 2, but let's hype responsibly, you know. Always hype responsibly. You can go, you know, tinfoil hat theory, as I like to do, but also have that realistic expectation that this isn't going to be the best case scenario. I would say, like I said at the top, though, I do think this is more exciting than if it had been just them bringing back the actual, you know, Nintendo World Championships where you fly out and, you know, play them in person. I think this is definitely more interesting. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that stuff. I would appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.